A Caravan of Courage is a much beloved yet often forgotten part of the Star Wars universe. In 1984, fresh off the heels of Return of the Jedi, George Lucas penned A Caravan of Courage, an Ewok adventure for screening on America's ABC television and theatrical runs in other parts of the world. The family adventure centers around the Towani family who had crash-landed on the forest moon of Endor. On this episode of Steele Wars, the film star Eric Walker talks to us about the adventures on set with the likes of Warwick Davis, Ron Howard, Linda Ronstadt, and of course, George Lucas. Was George Lucas around?
He was around.
Because he was the dark man. I like that he was like this executive producer that never got mentioned. But at what point did you meet him?
I think I met him. It was sometime during the first week of filming. Mm-hmm. Again, going back to Amanda Lucas, it was her first day of preschool, and he wanted to surprise her, so he brought Amanda Lucas to the set, but she didn't know that the Ewoks were played by people. So he asked if all the Ewoks could get in costume so that, she would still think they're real.
Yeah.
That's so
amazingly rad.
Yes.
Yub nub, everyone. This is Steele Wars episode 200, live at the Scum and Villainy Cantina, Eric Walker, and Tales from a Caravan of Courage.
Live from the Scum and Villainy Cantina in Hollywood, it's Steele Wars Live, episode 200! Please welcome your host, Steele Saunders!
Hey, you guys. Welcome to Steele Wars. I am comedian Steele Saunders, and I do love Star Wars! Now, it's episode 200, which sounds kind of impressive, yeah? 200 episodes. But then what someone pointed out to me is you've done all these bonus shows. You should count them up as well and work out how many episodes you've really done. So it's actually episode 487, which is a little less impressive and a bit more depressing, really, when you think about it. So what are you going to do? Welcome to the prestigious episode 487, guys. It's thrilling to be here. But one thing that has remained the same, opinions have changed, our views of Star Wars have maybe matured over the 200 episodes or whatever, but one thing has remained the same, and that's Ewoks. I've always loved the Ewoks. From episode 1 to episode 200, it's all been about the Ewoks. So very exciting to have Eric here to talk about A Caravan of Courage. Has anyone not seen A Caravan of Courage? You haven't? You haven't? Oh, you just don't know what you're in for. I watched it last night, and I hadn't seen it for maybe 20 years. I watch it every week. No, I haven't seen it for 20 years. And I sort of expected to not like it as much because I thought it would be like the holiday special sort of thing, but I had a great time. It was A Caravan of Courage. And if anyone that was following me on Twitter saw today, a few people tweeted me, and it's raining in LA, which means you can't leave the house or something. And someone tweeted me just like, oh, I can't cross the 91 today in this weather. So I retweeted that with A Caravan of No Courage. What an insult to those little Ewoks that had the might to go across Endor to save Sindel's parents.
Caravan of cowardice, more like.
Thank you, Rashad. The producer, Rashad, everyone. Give him a round of applause.
I haven't seen it either.
You don't do research for the show?
No.
Maybe you spent less time stapling logos to your denim top.
These are pinned, not stapled.
Okay, sorry. Didn't mean to offend you.
There is a distinct difference there.
What's the difference?
It's not permanent. Staple it, it's permanent. Then I can't wash this.
How often do you move them around?
All the time. I for this episode in particular, I laid out all my pins with the jacket and thought to myself, today's a special day. I got to bust out all the stops today.
So before today's show, you laid out your jacket and did all the pins, took a lot of time, that could have been spent watching A Caravan of Courage? Okay, well, that's a shame. That's a real shame. Now, let's bring up our guest. But it is thrilling to have today's guest. It is, I think, to little me in the cinema in Rosebud in Australia watching the Ewoks go on adventure and to be sitting... Actually, to think I'd be alive at this age when I was a little kid is daunting in itself. But to think I'd be alive sitting next to this man talking about Ewoks would make me want to grow up, something I very much feared to do. Please welcome our guest for episode 200. It is Eric Walker. Hi,
everybody. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, Eric. How you doing, man?
How are you?
You had a bit of a blast from the past in the audience tonight.
I did, and that was a great surprise. My agent, Judy O'Neill, is here. So, she was on the Ewok set. She was my guardian, and her daughter and I were close friends. We've been friends for over 35 years. Shayna O'Neill. So
yeah, the Geek Girl Diva that's been on the Steele Wars
awesome.
podcast a fair few times. Yeah.
So that was great.
Is Shayna's mum here to collect, like, have you
Yeah,
got,
she's
have you
here
got
to
any
collect all the
commissions that you haven't
residuals.
paid or something like that?
Yeah.
Getting some of that sweet Ewok coin that you didn't hand over?
Unfortunately, that Ewok coin stopped a long time ago since we're not canon any longer. So.
So like when they brought out the DVDs, did you get a bit of that Endor coin?
That was okay.
Yeah.
That was okay.
Okay.
And,
we've got to get that. We'll talk about that later on, but we've got to get this movie like back into circular. Look, it's disgusting that people whose priorities in life are so out of whack that they come to a Star Wars podcast on a Saturday afternoon also have not watched an Ewok adventure. Like, come on, you're doing saber training. Got to get into that Ewok adventure. Like Ewoks are so special to me. Like I got a Persian cat. Okay. Because it looked like an Ewok.
All right.
Do you know what I mean? My childhood teddy bear was an Ewok. And I named my firstborn son after an actor that once awkwardly got hugged on the leg by an Ewok.
Okay.
Probably not Harrison Ford's biggest claim to fame, but still, for me, that was it. But when you are just like walking around, you're in Target, right?
Uh-huh.
You're doing the daily shop, the weekly shop, the monthly shop. I don't know how often you shop. I don't want to get into your private life too much. But you're walking around and you see like a Funko Pop or a teddy bear of an Ewok these days. Like what pops into your mind?
I just want to just take it and smash it and throw it on the ground. Sorry. God,
he's already turned into a hostile interview subject.
Those Ewok characters, as Mace Towani said in Caravan of Courage, they're animals. They're walking hairbrushes,
That line, I watched the movie last night and we had to rewind it to like, what did he say?
Yeah.
But they're walking hairbrushes.
Yes.
That doesn't work. They're like, they might need a hairbrush, but they're not walking hairbrushes.
Yeah. It must have been because the guy who wrote the script was George Lucas's nanny. So.
Really?
Yeah.
George Lucas's nanny wrote the script.
Yeah, Bob Careau used to be the nanny for Amanda Lucas. So.
And he wasn't very good at analogies or metaphors or...
Well, the movies were made because, Amanda loved the Ewok movies. So George was making the 2 Ewok movies for his daughter. So that's how that all came about. So.
Yeah, I sort of used to get, like when they, like Jar Jar or whatever, and like, they put Jar Jar in and Jar Jar did all this because Jet Lucas thought it was really cute and like how he sort of would do stuff to please his kids.
Sure.
It used to annoy me. Like it was just like, but me, I'm watching it. But now I'm a dad and now I can say things like as a father and I'm so mature now, you guys. But now I think that's kind of rad. Like he's got this $1 billion franchise
cool?
and it's like, but what do you want me to do? Okay, fine.
That's great. He's a cool dad.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
Could you imagine being a kid like, Jet and be able to go all around and get on the Millennium Falcon and go through, all the old
I couldn't
toys
imagine.
And stuff. Yeah.
I couldn't imagine. My dad was a chef, right?
Right.
But he still wouldn't cook what I wanted. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So annoying.
He didn't want macaroni and cheese?
I just wanted spaghetti every
Okay.
night. Please, spaghetti every night. So, but seriously, when you see like some Star Wars merchandise or an Ewok, do you really want to like smash it? Or
No, I was just joking.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said upset. I'm very like I'm pretty like tough about most things, but I'm very like Ewok sensitive. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's like this is a special time for me. I remember.
Well, that's great. There's a lot of Ewok haters out there, so it's
Well,
nice
that's
to
the
meet
thing.
someone that's not. So
I talked. I've told this story a few times on the podcast, but I never knew you could not like Ewoks. Like, so
Right.
when Return of the Jedi came out,
Sure.
it was like one of the first movies I ever saw, and it wasn't until I went to a convention in Australia in the 90s, and Ewoks came up in a panel, and people at the back went boo, and I looked around, I was like,
Wow.
oh,
how rude.
people don't like how that's a possible thing, but I've since found out it's very possible.
Yes.
But what pops in your head when you think about Star Wars? When you see something Star Wars, do you think about your time filming, or is it that far gone?
No, I mean, at that time it was a very magical time. I mean, I knew what Star Wars was, so I had seen Return of the Jedi and the Ewoks. Actually, Star Wars Return of the Jedi was my first Star Wars movie.
Okay.
Because at that time I was, I wouldn't say I was too young, but I wasn't really going to the movies a lot. So I had heard of Star Wars, but Return of the Jedi was the first Star Wars movie I saw. And at that time they didn't have, video or DVD or Blu-ray and stuff like that. So you had to go to the movie theaters to see it. So
Yeah, it is so weird now to think, like, because I saw Star Wars. And then I saw Return of the Jedi,
Right.
and then I saw Empire Strikes Back, just because of the when films were coming out and we didn't have video or anything like that. But now you could just like, I haven't seen Empire Strikes Back here. It's on my phone. Like people, it's
Right.
like it's such a different time. But was seeing Return of the Jedi like confusing for you? Like this guy Han Solo's already frozen.
no, it wasn't confusing to me because it was still a very good story. It was still a complete story that
Yeah.
they made, so it wasn't very confusing. And the thing that I remember seeing Return of the Jedi was I thought it was so cool that when the Star Wars name came up and the music started, everybody started cheering and clapping. And I go, wow, this is going to be a great movie. Everybody's already cheering, and it just started. So that was my first experience.
That
with
is what.
So.
That is one of my most cherished things in life. Like when a new Star Wars film is out and just that, like everyone knows
Right.
what to do. Like when that logo comes up, it just, like cheer for this, cheer for that. I love that opening night sort of like tradition. Sort of
Yes,
thing.
it is, for sure.
So when like they brought out like Solo and Rogue One and they didn't have that at the start, I was like, oh, you've cheated me out of that one
Yeah.
cheer. I
Yeah.
love that.
They didn't have it in Caravan of Courage, but they still had the Fox fanfare. Not on the you're from Australia, so you did get to see it in the movie theaters.
Yeah.
So you heard the Fox fanfare come, and the Lucasfilm logo come up, but it didn't say Star Wars. But yeah.
Yeah. Seeing the Fox fanfare is not in my memory, but I would say last night it was definitely there.
Yeah.
And it starts with the old school green Lucasfilm
Yes.
Limited like logo
Yes.
before. Now they've got the swishy one that opens it, but it used to just be that green font, which
Yep.
it was so weird watching it last night because that font, I don't know, it just means entertain. Like you're about to have 2 hours of a pretty good time.
Yeah,
Do you know
you're
what I mean?
gonna.
And I did have a pretty good time,
Thanks.
Were you an Ewok fan in Return of the Jedi? What did you think? Because I sort of looked it up and I would have guessed you're maybe about 13.
I was 14 when they did that movie.
Okay. And that's sort of on the verge of getting into that rich, I don't like Ewok age. From all the people I've talked to, like Ewoks were made for me. Like I was
Right.
just like, I got the teddy bear, they were the best thing ever. But from people I've spoke to that were maybe like 8 when Star Wars came out,
Right.
and then Empire they loved, and then maybe they'd sort of grown out of that Ewok appreciation age. But what was your thoughts pre-Caravan of Courage on the Ewoks?
I thought they were cute. They looked like teddy bears, and I think Mace calls them teddy bears too. I think at one point, but I had great. I thought that the storyline and how the Ewoks, being such a primitive species, and how they were able to overtake, the stormtroopers and the Empire. I thought it was great. I think they did a great job on how they put that all together. They made it very believable. Having, how they had to do their own, those logs that, tripped up the ATs and stuff like that. So it all seemed very believable to me. I really enjoyed it. So.
Yeah, I like all the traps they set and the swimming wood and all that. I love it. It's like the best episode of the A-Team ever, which is a reference probably best for the 80s. I watched on YouTube yesterday. I was seeing what stuff was up about a Caravan of Courage and stuff, and I'm not sure if this is a genre of YouTube videos, but someone put up a compilation of all the advertisements that played in a Caravan of Courage.
Like when it was on television?
Yeah, but none of the movie, but all the ads. So it's got like you know how TV, when it would go to the ad, it would have like the slide of what the show was you were watching, and then it would go to the ads. So it starts with that, and then it has 4 ads, and then it goes back to the slide. So there's some genre where people just edit out the film and just put in the ads. And there's this new burger called the McDLT that looks super good. If you're in 1984, it looks like quite a burger. So
well, I'm sure watching those commercials you feel really dated. So
no, I don't feel. I felt contemporary. Like these guys are like in their high-strung jeans spinning around over this 40-year-old burger. I felt quite hip. You know, I mean, nothing's made me feel younger than watching those.
You want to work out like with Jane Fonda?
Yes.
Who wouldn't?
Set up like where you were in acting during that time. Like I sort of read a few interviews with you, and you did a guest thing on Webster. Yeah,
Webster was a television series which happened to be on ABC as well. I was on the 3rd episode, so I way back in the very beginning.
That was
before it became really famous. That show.
Oh, so Webster wasn't big then.
It wasn't out when I worked on it. It was coming in the fall. So when I actually did the episode, nobody knew who Emmanuel Lewis was at that time. So he wasn't famous.
Because that was during that trend, like around the start of the 80s, where it was like the cute kid, like there was Punky Brewster, Webster, Different Strokes. Where you had like this like cute kid that would have cool catchphrases and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
What was Webster really like?
I was just a fun kid. Fun, liked to play video games and hang out and shoot basketball and
nice.
So, he was a nice guy. And when I did Webster, we were our sound stage. It was filmed on the Paramount lot, so we were next to Family Ties.
Nice.
So I got to sit and talk with Michael J. Fox and the cast over there too. So it was a great time. So
it's pretty sick. What was the like going for the role on Caravan of Courage? Like, was it like nowadays they're so secretive about when people are going for castings for Star Wars stuff? Like, were you aware that it was like a Star Wars related thing?
Not in the beginning. Not in the beginning. In fact, my agent, who's here, Judy. She called me and said, I have a quick audition. It was a same-day audition, and you don't need to worry about it. Just it's for the part of some tough kid in some after-school special, 1-hour movie, like an after-school special, and they just want to see if you look like the part. So you're not going to have to read or anything, and just go in and meet with them. And it was at that time it was at the Egg Factory. And the Egg Factory is across the street from Universal Studios. It's torn down now. It's a subway station. But so I went there, and they liked me. I met John Cordy, who was the director, and Tom Smith, who was a producer. And they liked me so much, he said, we have a script here. Do you mind so that we could go out and study for 10 or 15 minutes and come back and we'll read some lines because the other executive producer couldn't be here. And they didn't tell me at the time that the executive producer was George Lucas. So so I went out, then I said, I'll do it on one condition. At that time, I really was trying to be a serious actor, even though I was only 14.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I really honed my craft, and I had been studying for like 3 or 4 years in acting classes in school and stuff like that. And I had prepared a monologue. So I said, if you let me do my monologue for you too, because I prepared that for auditions like this, okay. So I went outside with my dad, Gene is his name, Gene Walker, and we studied for 10, 15 minutes, and then we came back in. I read the lines, and then I did my monologue, and they said, thank you very much, we'll be in touch. I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think that I got the part. I didn't get any feelings from them or anything like that. And I think this all happened very, very quickly. I think that was in May. I did that audition, and then like a week or two later, they asked if I'd do a screen test, because they wanted to see, they wanted to put Aubrey Miller, who played Sindel, and myself together to see how we interacted, to make sure we worked well together, and also to see how well she was doing as well, because she was only 4 years old at the time when we did that movie, so she was very young.
She, in some scenes, is just so cute. It's like everyone else is like doing the scene and acting, and she's just standing there like going, whoa, these teddy bears are like, it's fun just to watch her kind of just sort of just trying to stand there sometimes. Like, she was so young.
Well, and they also wanted to make sure she wasn't afraid of an Ewok. They're worried about that. So, sometime near the end of the day, they brought out an Ewok on a stick, because they wanted her to see if she would get scared. So
they brought out what?
They brought one of the Ewoks out. They had it attached to a stick. They wanted to make sure.
Like a kebab, or?
Was it marinated?
Yeah. I'm sure some 501st troopers would like that. Right? But and she immediately ran up to it and started hugging it, and she, had no issues whatsoever, because just like you said, she liked teddy bears.
How was the Ewok mounted on a stick exactly? Like, I just can't picture. Like, was the stick behind it, or? This is upsetting for me.
Well, yeah, you got to make sure no Ewoks were harmed in the making of the movie. So I get it. Yeah.
But where was the stick? Behind it?
It was like attached to the stick somehow. I can't remember exactly, but the stick was probably like this tall, and it was like attached to it. But it had the head on it and everything, all the pieces. If you go and you look at,
you probably can't remember properly because it was so traumatizing. You blocked it out.
I probably did, yeah. But it was so long ago. I just remember that and them thinking she was going to be afraid of an Ewok. Like, who's afraid of Ewoks, Except for stormtroopers. Yeah.
And Han Solo.
Yeah, and Han Solo as well.
It's interesting, and I don't know, maybe they just got confidence in her that she wouldn't be scared, but like they're worried that she's scared of an Ewok. But there's a scene where, like, and spoilers for those that haven't seen the film, Wicket gets attacked by like a cow-sized spider, and it's above him, and he's stabbing the spider from under the spider, and like Sindel's just in the background, just standing there, just like watching. Mm-hmm. And then after the spider dies, which I found, out of all the things in the Ewok movie, this is the most unrealistic thing. The giant spider gets stabbed by the little teddy bear, and then the little cute girl goes up and just starts poking the spider. And I'm like, that would never happen. I wouldn't. I'd be out of there. I'm not scared of Ewoks, but I'm terrified of...
Yeah, they should have checked to see if she was scared of spiders. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, obviously, she really wasn't. She was very brave. Now...
but anyway, at the end of the day, they said, we're going to go and talk with the executive producer, and I still don't know this is George Lucas, but I kind of get an idea because I remember seeing Return of the Jedi, so I knew what an Ewok was. So they went in and they had some sort of meeting, and they came out, and before I even flew back, because this was done in Marin County up in near San Rafael at Cordy Films. And
so you got flown up to San Francisco?
I got flown up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So things are looking pretty good.
Yeah.
But you don't know what it's for.
I don't know what it's for, and but I'm kind of getting the idea, you know. So they came out and they said, "Congratulations, you got the part," before we even left.
Nice.
So that was, and I was on cloud 9. You know, wait a minute, I'm going to be involved something that's like part of Star Wars. It was like. Ooh, got to keep pinching myself. I don't know if Geek Girl Diva remembers, but we went over after we had the audition. I went over to her place and my agent's place, and I kept saying, pinch myself, I'm going to be a part of Star Wars. We knew what it was, so it was an awesome experience, so for sure.
And so you filmed it like sort of around Skywalker Ranch. Like a lot of the scenes looks like if the camera just leaned over a little bit, you'd see the main building there, like when you're on the hills and stuff like that.
Yeah, they did a good portion of it on Skywalker Ranch. But most of it was shot near Skywalker Ranch on this some sort of a forest that's pretty close there. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's pretty close there to there was most of the scenes. So, and most of it also on Skywalker Ranch, especially when we're doing the Caravan stuff and going over the mountains and stuff. And
yeah.
In the Magic Pond, the lake is on Skywalker Ranch. But at that time, they were just starting to build Skywalker Ranch. So at that time, Lucasfilm and ILM was still in San Rafael, so, and off of Kerner Avenue. So they did a lot indoors, on the main stage in Cookie Bay over there. So a lot of it was done on sound stages too, and blue screen. A lot of blue screen stuff. So.
And what did they, like when you've got the role, like when did they sort of explain what the concept was and how it fit in with Star Wars?
I don't know that they took the time to explain that it was part of Star Wars, but I obviously knew it was, and I got the script. We started working on it. It was a very short period of time. We started in June, I think the first day was June 11th, 1984 was the first day of photography. So, and I had the full script, so they didn't they weren't trying to be that secretive as you would think.
Yeah.
Like they were with the other stuff. I know on the second Ewok movie they were, I don't know why, but they were way more strict on the second Ewok movie. They even had the pages numbered, and you had to turn in the script.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but in the first one, they didn't do that. So
interesting. And what about was George Lucas around?
He was around
because he was the Dark Man. I like that he was like this executive producer that never got mentioned. But at what point did you meet him?
I think I met him. It was sometime during the first week of filming. Again, going back to Amanda Lucas, it was her first day of preschool, and he wanted to surprise her, so he brought Amanda Lucas to the set, but she didn't know that the Ewoks were played by people. So he asked if all the Ewoks could get in costume so that, she would still think they're real.
Yeah. That's amazingly rad.
Yes. And at that time, George was dating Linda Ronstadt, so she came with him as well. So
nice.
So I got to meet her, and I have video of a lot of this stuff as well. Warwick Davis and I shot a whole making of behind the Ewok movies, and we have 2 hours of footage that nobody's seen. So
yeah, I saw on your YouTube channel you've got a little bit of footage.
I
from
did
that.
Put a little bit on my YouTube channel. Yeah, there's about 10 or 12 minutes plus my original audition that I just spoke about. Is on there
and
as
your
well.
monologues on there as well.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, the monologue you did was you're auditioning for this fun adventure with little teddy bears.
Yeah.
And your monologue's
and I'm talking about how, my, mother committed suicide, and because my father, who's an alcoholic, got arrested and died of a heart attack. It's pretty heavy, actually.
That's not my Star Wars, guys.
Yeah,
okay?
that's not.
I don't know about you
but
guys.
Back to what we were talking about, the audition, they were videotaping it to show the executive producer, the dark guy, and I heard later that the producer didn't hit the record button, but hit the record button on my monologue. So that's what he saw.
Oh, sorry. Just saying during a podcast didn't hit the record button.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. That doesn't work, huh? Did you hit record?
I'm just teasing.
Okay. Because I don't want to listen back to this and it's just his monologue. That would be very disturbing.
If it was good enough for the executive producer.
Dude. His mum is having a bad time in it, trust me.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's you thought Shmi Skywalker had a bad life. Wow.
Yeah, right.
he did have to see those Ewoks on skewers.
That's true.
It was going to be a heavy movie just from that, if that was any
very
indication.
Well, not only that, when they take the heads off, they have this whole, I don't know how to describe it, but they have these stands for the heads, so they're putting Ewok heads together, and I have a picture that has like 6 Ewok heads on it.
Like heads on a pike or something?
No, it's just a stand, and they like a wood stand. That looks pretty scary, looking at 6 or 8 Ewok heads.
Yeah, like the original Planet of the Apes or something, how they had all the warning poles and stuff. But Linda Ronstadt, The Simpsons has had such an effect on my life. Because of like that Mr. Plow episode, I can't picture her not in a spa. Like, Barney goes out with Linda Ronstadt after he becomes the Plow King or something, and they do an ad together. So, people seen The Simpsons, but there's a scene with her in the spa, and that's pretty much all I know about her. So whenever I hear, when I hear that George Lucas went out with her, I just picture George Lucas in the spa. Like, I've got a very spa-centric idea.
But you were talking about George Lucas's involvement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he did come, like we mentioned, to the set. But George started getting really way more involved than what people realize. I mean, he started editing the movie. He started coming to the set a couple more times a week. And during the reshoots, the director had some sort of scheduling conflicts, so George Lucas actually directed me. He directed the whole week, 1 week of reshoots on the Ewok. A lot of people think he directed during the prequels, but that's not true. He directed a lot of the scenes in Caravan of Courage. So.
Did he ever tell you to redo a scene faster and more intense?
Yes.
You are a true Star Wars actor then. That is...
Yeah. He liked to use the word, let's go, let's go, let's go.
Was he... you were so young, but did you notice a difference between the two directors?
Sure I did. And I've talked about this in other interviews. John Cordy is what we call an actor's director. And for your podcast viewers and everybody here, an actor's director is someone that knows a little bit about acting. They may have studied, So, and John Cordy was that person for me, and he was great. And George Lucas was great too. I'm not saying he wasn't. He's brilliant. The way he sets up the shots, he's very fast paced, and he makes changes on the spot. I remember one morning there's a scene where it's right when we're trying to go inside the Gorak's castle. We shot it, even though we're, we shot this at ILM, even though we didn't shoot it on location, and he had to do a pickup shot. So they put me on this stand, so I was up real high, and so they just had the blue sky in the background. So the spot where you're seeing Mace talk about figuring out a way to get inside the castle, George directed that, and he added all those lines right there on the spot. I mean, he handed me his handwritten. He didn't have time to type it, so he's handed me his writing. And I thought, geez, I wish I would have saved that instead of throwing it away.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, who would have known? And it's actually from this scene. I brought a picture, actually. And I did bring some pictures for everybody, so I brought some gifts for everybody.
Nice.
But it's this scene. This is a scene that this was a shot that was taken during the Ewok movie, and George Lucas directed this scene. So I guess he wanted to soften the character a little bit. Mace was a real brat. I mean, but kind of like myself a little bit, but he was really mean, and they wanted to soften his character a little bit instead of him being so mean to the Ewoks. So
I've got some notes about that. We'll get to it because
Okay.
Mace is not what I remember, but it was like how you looked and how you dressed and the haircut. It was very like you were very Mark Hamill-esque.
Oh yeah.
Like it was, and because your last name's Walker, you know when you're little and you like just see stuff and you just make up stories about or how that would work.
Right.
Because like, I'm watching it on I've got no internet to refer to or anything like that, but you had Luke Skywalker's jumpsuit on. It looked like
It was actually. The costumer told me that it was the flight suit.
Really?
Yeah, so they used the actual flight suit.
Wow, don't worry about George Lucas notes. That's what you should have stole. And because your surname was Walker, and I know that's your real name.
It is my name,
now
yeah.
that I'm an adult. But when I was little, I'm like, oh, his surname's Walker. He must be related somehow. But but I read that people like called you Mark
Oh
Hamill.
yeah, they thought until I turned around and they saw I was a young kid, they called my name Mark, and a lot of people said, we thought you were Mark, until what is Mark doing here? Is he, it's like he was going to be a part of it. So.
Yeah, it's
even Warwick Davis's mother, Sue Davis, told me she thought I was Mark. So
interesting. When I picture Warwick Davis's mum, I picture her in an Ewok outfit as well. I might have some emotional issues, guys. Yeah, it was. I was thinking about it yesterday. Like, if George Lucas kind of kept going with the films instead of taking that 15-year break or whatever it was, and he went back, like, you would have been like a pretty good candidate to be Anakin Skywalker just because you look so much like.
I did look a lot like him. Yeah.
How was that like? And you were Mace.
Yeah,
and
I'm
then
the
there was
original Mace. Yeah.
What was that like when the Phantom Menace came out and there's another? Did you think, oh, that's odd? Or
No, I thought George was trying to say he remembered me or something like that. It's like an ode to working with me. That's the way I see it. He liked the name, I guess.
Yeah, and it's quite a tribute to you that Samuel L. Jackson, because when I think of Samuel L. Jackson, I think
he's
of you,
one
Eric.
bad.
So Linda Ronstadt was on set. George Lucas was on set. Was there any other sort of fun visitors?
Michael Jackson came to the set on the second one. Yeah. So.
What?
Yeah.
Michael Jackson.
And I just missed him by a day. I was so crushed.
Oh, you didn't get to see him?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
I've met him a few times after that, but yeah.
How did you meet him?
He wanted to see the movie. Wanted me to come and watch the movie with him. So.
Really?
Yeah.
So you went to Neverland?
No, he didn't have Neverland back then. He was over at Encino.
So Michael, my mind is blown. So someone.
No, he didn't do anything to me.
Wasn't going to go there.
Okay.
But you did. I appreciate that. So how does that come about?
He just wanted to. He
how does
made a phone call.
How does Michael Jackson get in contact with you?
Oh, I don't know how he does that. I was a kid,
And so he just says, "Come around."
Yeah, I went over
Bring
there
the
and
video.
I watched the movie. Got a copy of it from Lucasfilm. So.
And so you just sat on a couch
No, he had a little movie theater in his place set up.
popcorn,
Yeah.
soda.
Soda, yeah. Candy.
Did he talk during the film?
No.
Interesting.
No.
What did he say afterwards?
That was really good. No. No, he didn't. I really like those Ewoks. No, he didn't say it. He didn't. He liked the movie a lot.
That is so strange.
Yeah.
You don't think that's... Am I the only one that thinks that's...
It is strange. You're right.
Yeah.
And there might have been other people that came to the set too, but those, not too many that I recall.
It was hard to top... Well, George Lucas is pretty obvious there, but Michael Jackson, that's about as...
Well, they were doing Captain EO at that time. They were getting ready to do it, so that's why he was there.
Okay.
Oh, I know who. Ron Howard. I met Ron Howard.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. And he was very kind to me. He said, I hear you're doing a great job on the movie. Yeah, and he was a real nice guy.
Sweet.
At that time, he was also doing some special effects shots for Cocoon at that time. So that's why he was at ILM.
Tight.
And he was kind enough to take a picture even. I have a picture. So.
Nice. When the... so you're working on this Star Wars film, and it's going to be made for TV, right? And back then there was like made for TV films was sort of pretty big, yeah.
They were they were like a big deal. I mean, they made a big deal out of it. This was, and when they did all the commercials and everything, they talked about how it was Lucasfilm's first movie for television, and I think it was on because they wanted to with the sound effects. You know how Star Wars has the greatest sound effects.
Mm-hmm.
They ended up doing a simulcast so it could be in stereo because televisions didn't have stereo then, so it was on the radio as well.
Oh, so you could tune in and
Yeah.
listen to it.
Yeah, it was on. I think it was on KLOS here, and yeah.
Wow, that'd be so cool. Like if you were running late and you were in traffic and you just like could tune in and listen. I would do that now. I have to say, I would listen to the Ewok Adventure. Like you enjoyed the Return of the Jedi. You were sort of into the Ewoks. What was it like? Like, because for me, it would just be like I get to play with Ewoks for 6 weeks in a forest, and there's this one scene where you're in the red jumpsuit and they're sort of having a parade for you. You're about to leave on your caravan of courage.
Caravan, yeah.
And there's like about 50 Ewoks and they're all just cheering and you're walking through. That to me seems very surreal. What was it like, just like the fun of interacting with these like little teddy bears?
That was an interesting day. That was they had a lot of children on the set that day to be in Ewok costumes.
Gotcha.
And they had a lot of cameras. So it was, they must have, I think they had like 12 different cameras trying to capture it from all angles. So for me, that particular scene you're talking about felt so real because it was such a large scene that they were trying to film that you could really feel like you're in character. So it was just so surreal, to be able to, and like I said, it was just putting that jumpsuit on. And, the little gadgets and stuff that Mace has, like, he has his life monitor and he also has a gun and he has another pocket thing that lights up fire, if you remember that scene where he lit the fire. And all that, having that costume on, in acting, we have something called the magic of believing, and this, having that costume on really puts you. It was so easy to get into character and feel like you're really there. You're really on the forest moon of Endor. So,
and you're in a forest with little bears. Like it's all coming together.
Yeah.
The wristband, I've got an issue with. There's 3 main bits of technology that Mace has, and it's the rifle, the laser gun.
The laser gun
does some good stuff. Mm-hmm. He's got that sweet lighter that lights fires, which is amazing. Like I want one of them. The wristband, it's a major sort of plot point in the film, but it's a bit of technology. It's like a wristband, this big thick thing, and there's 4 lights, and all it seems to do is to signify if your family are dead or alive.
Yes.
So it's like,
true.
Like you wake up every morning, check, yep, mum's
I'm alive, yeah.
Yep, I'm alive. And then it just seems like such a downer of technology. Like if one of the lights turns off, it's like, God, I hope this thing's not working properly because mum's dead.
Well, it became a major part of the story arc because the Gorax, its pet, that little Bora creature, had the life monitor, one of the life monitors on it. So it told us that our parents might still be alive. So.
See, I don't even know how that. Cause I'm a Star Wars nerd. You can just pass it off and it will tell you if they're still alive. Mm-hmm. How does the wristband that's not on the person know it's still alive?
That makes sense to me, what you're saying, but...
Yeah. And in that case, why do you... Don't worry, I hate the wristbands, all right? I know they're needed, but, when I think about it with that 2019 nerd mentality, get me an Apple Watch any day.
It kind of sounds like Find My iPhone, but space Find My Family. I don't know.
It doesn't find them. It just says if your iPhone still works.
Yeah. There you go.
No more heckles.
And speaking of that, she mentioned continuity. The continuity in that movie was really bad. Like, 1 second, the flowers next to my sick sister there, and then the next shot, she's coughing and the flower's not there. Then the next shot, the flower's dead. And then I, they just did a lot of stuff. Like I put the wrong hand in the tree, and the reason why that happened was because there was originally a different scene that was deleted, and the scene had too many special effects in it that they knew they couldn't get it done, so they had to reshoot it with the tree, sticking my hand into the tree. And they didn't tell me what hand to put in there, so I just put my right hand in there. But when they filmed the other scene, I had put my left hand into this flower, they had this man-eating gulping flower. They called them the gulping flowers, and they eat you or whatever, and it starts to drag me down underneath the ground, and you see part of the inner part of Endor or whatever, and it was just too many effects. They said, no, we can't do this, so it's a deleted scene. But that caused the big continuity flaw with the wrong hand. Later you see Wicket's mother, and it's my left hand, not my right hand, that she's putting lotion on.
I did when I noticed last night you put the wrong arm in. I just like lost my shit. I like, wrote this blog, did all these tweets. It's like no good. We're talking about continuity and stuff. Like, what did they say at like how you guys fit into the Star Wars universe? Like, you had Return of the Jedi, the Rebels were on Endor. Did they like tell you was this before or after?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, and I've talked about this a lot. I know that there was a gentleman who wrote a book in the expanded universe that puts the movies on three Abbey.
Yeah.
So, and it has Sindel, my sister. She's a reporter on Coruscant, so she's grown up and she's a reporter. And actually, she's in the book. I can't remember the name of the book. You have to look it up. But when we were doing the Ewok movie, Warwick Davis and I were walking around doing the making of behind-the-scenes stuff. So we asked the producer, when does this take place? And he said that this takes place 150 years after the Battle for Endor. And that's why Wicket and Ewoks could understand a little bit of basic, and that's how they're able to communicate with us. And in fact, it's hard to tell, but in one of the scenes where Wicket and Sindel, they're playing about the Star Cruiser crash. Remember that scene? Star Cruiser crash.
Dude. I remember that scene.
Yeah.
I spent many years annoying my parents with Star Cruiser. It was fantastic.
Yeah. So in that scene, if you look really closely, if you could kind of see there's a storm. One of the toys is a stormtrooper.
Oh, really?
So I know they had it there. I've been trying to see, and I kind of make it out, but you have everybody, look at it. That'd be something for everybody to try to spot. And there's also other trivia about the Ewok adventure, since you're calling them teddy bears. There's a scene that has a very famous Disney character in for one split second.
Really?
Yeah. So,
Pooh Bear?
Yep. Winnie the Pooh.
What's he doing?
He's just sitting there next to the hut on the right-hand corner there, and they did it on purpose. It's because they like to joke
Easter
around
egg,
there.
Little Easter egg.
Yeah.
It's weird that you bring up the Stormtrooper because when like I think like the trailer came out for Caravan of Courage because it was at the cinema in Australia.
In a movie, yeah.
And this guy I went to school with, he was 1 year older than me, Matt Kemp, right? He had a sweet trampoline. It was in-ground. It was amazing, Olympic style. But he said he saw the trailer for it. I remember where I was in the schoolyard. He goes, I saw there's an Ewok movie coming out, and it's after Return of the Jedi because there's one scene where there's a stormtrooper still walking around in the trailer, right? And I'm like, oh, that's amazing. After Return of the Jedi is going to be so good. So I saw the film, and there's no stormtrooper in it, right? But I wasn't, because he was older than me, I wasn't like confident enough to confront him about his lie.
Right.
But I've begrudged him ever since. So Matt Kemp,
Hey,
if you're
Matt,
out there,
you're a liar.
you're a filthy liar, all right? And I know. But 150 years, that sort of makes sense. Because
Well, and he said, Wicket's, about 200 years old. He's a teenager. So I guess Ewoks have long lives. So
very long. Because they do. I read one theory was that he learned how to speak English, and this just drove me up the wall. It was not in Star Wars they call it basic,
right?
But it was a different type of basic, and that then the filmmakers had translated it so we could understand. So it was a different language to what like the Rebels, and I was just like, you're killing me with this, but But 150 years makes sense because it's the forest moon of Endor. But if you remember, they walk through bits that are just like barren and desert.
And that's probably what happened after the Death Star. All the stuff destroyed most of the planet.
The nuclear fallout.
So that part of the continuity they got right.
It's depressingly right.
But anyway, since you were talking
Yeah.
about basic and the Ewoks language, I don't know. Maybe a lot of people don't know this, but they actually created for the Ewok movies. They created an entire Ewok language. They actually hired someone to create the language, and she even has credits on the credits. So there actually is somewhere at Lucasfilm. They actually have the entire language.
Really?
Yeah.
And they just disrespected her work by having them speak English a lot of the time.
Yeah, and now none of it's everything's legends now anyway, so it doesn't exist. So
That's my type of legend. That is my type of legend. So in the lead up to it coming out, were you like how big was it at the time? Like, because the television viewership was so much more concentrated then.
Oh, it was.
There was only in America 5 channels, and cable maybe was just sort of starting or not that big. But was it like the day after it came out, like things were crazy?
it was for a little bit, not like terribly crazy. I went to public school. I was in junior high. And my friends and I would play basketball during our lunch breaks, and normally no one's out there. But the day after the Ewok movie came out, there's 200 people surrounding us, asking us questions. So, and I would have people recognize me when I would go out to places like the grocery store or this place or that place, and it was nothing too horrible. I wasn't mobbed or anything like that. But
Okay.
But it did okay. It did. I believe it had 65 million people watched it the night it was out. So it did fairly well.
And did you watch it on TV, or did you have a special
Yeah,
premiere?
we did. We had a party at my place. We invited all of our friends and family and everybody, and so
There wasn't a Lucasfilm premiere or anything like that?
Lucasfilm had they had screenings of the movie on the 20th Century Fox lot. And I went there and watched it, and ABC had screenings, so I went there and watched it as well. Lucasfilm actually had a cast and crew screening. I didn't make it to that one because it was up north. And but yeah, I mean they. Other than that, and for you, it was a movie. We got cheated here. In America and Canada, it was on television, but everywhere in the entire world, it was a movie, and it was billed like a Star Wars movie. I mean, your friend was wrong about the Stormtrooper, but a lot of the posters and a lot of the adverts did bill it like it was a Star Wars movie, like it was a continuation of it.
Oh, yeah. For me, even after I had it on video and stuff, I would, it was part of my rotation. Do you know what I mean? I watched Star Wars Empire, Return of the Jedi.
Right.
And then you put on Caravan of Courage, see what happened next. Do you know what I mean? I didn't realize it was 150 years later, but I saw it at the cinema, right? And I was pumped. This was
it played good in a movie. It was a good movie for cinema.
The year before Return of the Jedi, cinema was it was packed. It was pandemonium, right? And so I go there with, I'm super young. My brother took me and a couple friends, and we saw it during the day, and I was so confused because it was literally just us in the cinema. And I was like, what's going on? Everyone was here last year, and this is just Ewoks.
Yeah.
There should be more people here. Do you know what I mean? But the weird thing was, it was just us and a couple up the back, a boy and a girl that were teenagers, right? And I was too young to understand, and it wasn't until later on that it clicked. They weren't taking much notice of the film.
Okay. Okay.
So for them, it was a very sultry Ewok adventure. I remember looking around, I'm like, why aren't they watching? This is so annoying. What are you guys doing up there? And then later on, I was like,
But you know what? That movie's still very special to them. As special as it is for you, just in another reason.
That's true. I mean, yeah. I don't know how well it did in Australia, but I know the movie was the number 3 movie of the year in France.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
in
awesome.
Japan it was the number 1 movie of the year it was out. It was so big in France that they actually had a famous pop singer do a song about the Ewoks. So we actually had a song. If you look it up, it's called Les Petites Ewoks, and you could see the music video from Dorothy is her name. She's some famous pop artist or whatever in France.
That's English for the little Ewok.
There you go.
Correct? Okay. Just for those that don't speak French in the audience.
So I watched it last night. I made some notes, right?
Okay.
I don't know how good your parents were. You crash land on a planet, and then they go, like the movie starts with them, they've gone off somewhere.
Right.
And then they come back and you guys aren't there. And they're like yelling out like, come back, we aren't mad at you. We aren't mad at you. It's like, why would you be mad? They've crashed the spaceship and then they just left you in the forest. Like, why would they be mad at you?
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Well, they used to beat us. I'm just... And,
But the mum seems annoyed. You have to watch the start. The mum's just like going, where are those two? And it's like, are you scared or annoyed at them?
We're not mad.
And then one of my favorite scenes is the Star Cruiser scene, where Wicket learns how to say Star Cruiser, which is so sweet.
It's cute.
But looking at it like with a modern lens, Steele says, what, you don't have a Star Cruiser? Like, that is white privilege at its worst, you guys.
Yeah, it is. Sure is.
The scenes with... There's this one scene that when I saw it, it just jogged this fun memory. And you're sort of walking kind of like a soldier and Warwick Davis copies you.
Oh, yeah.
Like, or Wicket copies you. Like, and you're making the film and stuff, but it seemed like you and Warwick Davis like really hit it off.
Oh, yeah. Warwick Davis and I were like, two peas in a pod. We're both teenagers. In fact, Warwick Davis's birthday is I think it's today. Is it today or is it when he's the 3rd? So it's tomorrow. So Warwick Davis's birthday is tomorrow.
Happy birthday, Warwick.
Happy birthday, Warwick. So we're literally born 3 days apart. So we're the same age. So we did everything together. 2 teenagers. And he was just so fun to be around. Cracking jokes all the time. I mean, I don't know if any of you have seen his work with Ricky Gervais.
Yes.
But I have videos of Warwick Davis clowning around, showing great comic timing even as a teenager. So it didn't surprise me that he ended up doing comedy with him. So.
But the guy can act.
Oh, he's a great actor. Great person, too. Funny guy.
There's a scene in it where he's not allowed to go on the hang glider with the rest of the old people.
Right.
And he looks like he gets sad about it. Mm-hmm. And that, as a little kid, I could really relate. It's like, I'm not allowed to go hang gliding with my family either. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, he has that character so down that I could watch the Ewok movie, and I know when it's somebody standing in for him, I could tell. Because of the way the person's walking. Wicket had that little walk.
Yeah, no, don't tell me how to tell, because they'll fracture my childhood. And
I won't.
It's always him. It's always him. I need, like, if I went on the set, I want those Amanda Lucas rules where everyone has to keep their helmets on.
There you go. Yeah.
I can't do that. But the one thing that it didn't sort of hit me until I rewatched it was, like, Mace. He's got some issues.
Oh, he sure does, yeah.
He's a dick a lot of the time.
Yeah.
There's this one scene where Steele, the little girl, like looks like a little like Drew Barrymore looking girl, she's sick and she's got a fever, and Wicket's like next to the bed, like going, yub-nub, like all this stuff. Mace walks in and just shoves Wicket out of the way. There's another scene where you come in with a like Mark Hamill doing Schwarzenegger, like just bossing all these Ewoks around. Like, what was going on with? Was it a tough time? Was he going through galactic puberty?
Yeah, he sure was. He was a tough kid. He thought he was, and he was angry. He thought he knew everything. That's for sure.
One of the best scenes where Steele's like passing out, harrowing, right?
Right.
And the Ewok medicine man, I don't know if it was Logray or what, but someone says he's got a leaf and he mutters something, and then you instantly translate. You go, oh, what? This is medicine? Which is just like some amazing like translation.
Right.
And then like in the next scene, you run out and you're like you're sort of like going, we need more medicine. Right. And it reminded me of Nick Cage in that film where he's like, the bees. Like, that needs to be gift, the we need more medicine. That needs to be a sweet meme. And the other thing I realized was the Caravan does not start for like hours into the film.
Yeah.
Like, there's all these sort of like sub-adventures, and the bit where there's the parade, and then you end up going...
Right.
That's like 2 hours into the film.
Yeah, it does start later in the movie.
It should be called like a Caravan of Courage eventually. An Ewok adventure. An Ewok adventure.
Well, there were other scenes that they cut out, so it's good they did, huh? Otherwise, it would have took longer to get to the caravan.
Well, the scene you're talking about with the arm when you put it in, because you go through like, you sort of get treated like the robbers in Home Alone. Like, Mace gets a lot of bad things done to him.
Yeah.
There's the scene where you put your arm in the tree.
Right.
And even when I was a little kid, I just thought you're an idiot for I was like, you don't put your arm in a tree over that.
What planet, yeah.
What was it like to do that? And there was another scene where that big dog thing is sort of, you're in a tree.
Right.
A lot of tree work in this film, you guys. But how was that dealing with like all the special effects and that sort of stuff?
You just have to pretend, because that stuff comes later. All that adds. You got to really be on point.
Were they showing you like pictures of things that were going to happen?
They did not show us anything when we were doing that stuff. They would just kind of describe it. The scenes where we had that firefly creature.
Yeah.
The queen or Isrina or whatever her name was. That they had a little light bulb, and they would had it on a stick and would be moving it around. So that helped a little bit to have our eyes move, but you had to completely believe in, you're doing a lot of blue screen work as well. Nothing's there except for the blue screen behind you. And Lucasfilm, at that time, they had the largest blue screen in the world up there at ILM. I don't know I'm sure they have the biggest one still somewhere now, but at that time was the largest one.
See, a light bulb on a stick, I'm fine with. It's the Ewoks on a stick. Well, that effect...
Yeah. But during some of it, like, they would have, squibs and stuff. Squib is a little mini explosion that goes off.
Gotcha.
And they would use those so later they could draw on the laser when we're firing a gun or whatever we're doing. So that helped a lot, because it's a big explosion sound. So it's like, In fact, during when we were doing the scene near the beginning of the movie, when the Ewoks first meet us or whatever, and Mace is really like a big jerk and saying, stay away from inside the Star Cruiser, he fires the weapon and it goes off and hits the thing in the back part of the ship, and sparks go everywhere. In the actual scene, those sparks went inside my boot and burned my sock, so they had to cut the take, so I had a little bit of a burn on there. So, yeah, Mace really did.
Well, I hope you learned your lesson. Or him, or someone, but...
I don't think he did, because then later he puts his hand on some magic pawn and gets stuck underneath that.
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah.
I feel like... So there's a scene, for those that haven't seen the film, where the Wicket and Sindel playing. It's like they're in the middle of their Caravan of Courage. They're taking time out, and there's a creek. And Mace goes up and just touches the creek, and it's some, like, I don't know, like cursed creek. And as soon as you touch it, you're under the water, and you can't get out. Like,
you're stuck. Unless you have they called it the magic pawn, and Wicket was given the magic stick, which you could get.
Ah, yeah.
That's why they had to use that. So.
But that, I feel like, saved hundreds of child's lives, because after that scene, like, I took this film pretty seriously when I was little, if you haven't picked that up. But I would not go through it near a creek, near a river, near a dam. There was a puddle out the front. I was scared of that.
Yeah.
But I feel like that did wonders for water safety, because I was like, you never know which one of these bodies of water are going to be like...
Might get stuck underneath it. Yeah.
Dude, and how did you film? Were you underneath there?
They did that. On Skywalker Ranch, they made a pawn, that magic pawn. They actually made it.
They brought in some witches to curse it?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that came in the second one, when they had the witch. The Night Sister, which later they used in Rebels. But our movies had a lot of stuff that they used later. I mean, some people say, the Ewok movie, The Caravan of Courage, is like it's like Star Wars but mixed with fantasy. So it's kind of got a lot like the Lord of the Rings. It's a lot fantasy like that. So it's
I kind of think it's like, it's sort of like the books, Like they you know, you're talking about like the expanded universe and stuff.
Right.
And that sort of took Star Wars and took it off into like a real sort of science fiction-y, like that sort of hard science fiction sort of hard science fiction type storytelling. But I feel like the Caravan of Courage and its fantasy thing sort of took another part that was in it that George Lucas, you know, really liked. Like he wasn't sort of into the whole, you know, working out how gravity works and this, that, and the other. It was sort of like, it's just like that. Do you know what I mean? But I kind of feel like it gives like an interesting view of how George Lucas, like the stories he wanted to write that weren't sort of, I sort of like just like all the fantasy elements and, you know, like rocks that do cool stuff when you need them to. I was pretty annoyed when you threw out that rock, by the way.
Yeah, well, it's just a stupid rock. But
that's like the Bart Simpson I didn't do it thing. It's like he said the rock line. Yes.
And when we were doing that movie, Amanda was visiting the set because George was doing the pickups on that scene. And right after Mace says that, Amanda starts yelling at, "Why is it a stupid rock, Eric? Why is it a stupid rock?" Right in the middle of the take. So.
I feel like Amanda Lucas was like my substitute on set. She was doing all the things that I would have liked to do. Now, like, what were the sets like? Were there like sweet tree houses and stuff like that? It was hard to work out like what was there and what wasn't. They
did a hut that was on the ground floor, which is where they bring us to in the beginning of the movie. That was an Ewok hut, but the rest of that stuff was all matte paintings. The Ewok huts in the trees and stuff like that. They didn't. That stuff was all done later in post-production. So
okay, all right. What about just some bizarre stuff in the film? There's like an Ewok seance where like they spin the thing.
Yeah, low grade.
Like, well, do you have any like memories of like filming that and just like?
I hate that scene. I'm acting my ass off in that scene. It's like ridiculous. And it's like, I just couldn't get in. I don't know what happened that day, or when we did the ADR looping, maybe it got messed up in looping, and that's the thing too. Doing these movies ruined me watching a movie for almost 10 years. I couldn't go and watch a movie because every time I go watch a movie, I could see when the people are speaking, the lips don't match. You know, it just totally destroyed it for me. I couldn't enjoy a movie for 10 years.
So what happened with the ADR? Because it's cut really weird, where there's they have this seance and this thing spins, and then you see like the Gorax and your parents, and you sort of start like sort of yelling out plot points to the kids.
Stupid things like, "It's a monster. It looks like a monster. Something real big. What is it? What is it? Where is it?"
Where did you say it looks like a monster? Something really big.
Yeah. Or something really big. Yeah.
So, how did the scene originally play out? Do you remember your monologue from that one?
Yeah. I think the scene was shot better than it was edited and how it turned out. And they were going mainly for the special effects part of it that they were trying to focus on, I think, and show that Low Gray has a power to see with that orb thing that he was spinning. But, you know, it is what it is. You know, I have scenes that I love in that movie. I have scenes that I hate, you know, as every actor does.
What's one of your favorite ones?
My favorite scene in the movie is when Sindel and I, coincidentally, we ran out of time, so I couldn't ADR the scene, so I couldn't do the looping. So it's the only scene in the movie that's not looped, too, by the way. And it's the scene where Sindel and Mace have run away from the Ewoks, and Sindel gets tired, so he uses his lighter stick to light the fire, and they have that scene with the fire. That's my favorite scene, where he's trying to comfort his sister. Yeah.
Nice. How did you guys get along?
We got along really good. Aubrey, you know, I felt like, you know, it was my little sister, and, you know, we went out and did things together, and even for years later, her parents thought maybe her parents were very protective because she was very young, and that's understanding, and they didn't know if they wanted her to be a part of the film industry, so they were very protective of her, and So they came down to her and they got an agent. And they tried it for a little bit, but they decided that Hollywood wasn't for them, and they didn't continue to pursue it. But she was mainly like she was a model, like a print. She did a lot of print work, and that's all she did. I think she was offered a TV series, and they turned it down. It was the show. It was a show with Wilford Brimley. It was on here. Trying to remember. I think it was called something House, Our House, or something like that.
Oh, because he was in the next film.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, Wilford Brimley was the next movie. So he had remembered Aubrey and wanted her to be in the movie, in the TV series with him. So, but they didn't want to do it. So that's why her family was very overprotective. That's why she never really did anything other than the Ewok movies.
Did you ever get to talk to like George Lucas about Star Wars and if he had plans to do any new films or anything?
No. George Lucas is a very quiet, reserved person. So, no, we never had any conversations about what was going to happen, although there were lots of rumors going on the set about what was going on with the company, Lucasfilm, and you know how it is when you work for a company. You hear all the behind-the-scenes stuff. So, like, at that time, I think he just finished his divorce, so they were talking about how much money his wife got, silly stuff like that, so... and they were getting ready to do Howard the Duck at that time, and Warwick Davis was supposed to be Howard the Duck. He was supposed to be Howard, but something happened when they did the head, which was very expensive. It was like $2 million, and they didn't measure his head, and they went and made it, and it didn't fit, so he couldn't be Howard the Duck, and he was really bummed out about that. And George and him had a great relationship, and so he ended up writing Willow for him. So that's how Willow came about.
That's better than Howard the Duck.
It is.
Yeah.
Are you saying that Willow was a make good for Howard the Duck?
I think it was.
Wow.
I can't say it was, but I know Warwick was really bummed out about it. I remember when he was coming to America to meet Ron Howard, and I remember because we went out because they did the final casting here, and he had to come and do a screen test with Ron Howard, and I remember when he got the part, it was very happy. I was very happy for him. So
it's a huge come up from Howard the Duck to Willow. I mean, no offense to Howard the Duck or anybody who likes Howard the Duck, but Willow, come on.
Well, I don't know what happened with Howard the Duck. I never read the script, but I've heard through people that originally it was more like the comics, and George at that time was working on Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, so he kind of left to go scout locations in Africa and other places, and he kind of let the people do it, and he just had to come back and clean up the mess, basically. So
he left and just said to someone else...
He trusted the people that were producing it.
You can measure Warwick's head. I'll leave that to you.
I don't know about that, but yeah.
Like, was it sort of your expectation that, like, it would go on? Like, there was another film.
Well, yeah, there was a third Ewok movie, and they just had too many things that they were doing at that time, so they scrapped it. I've heard through the rumor mill that there was even a third script written even for it.
Really?
So, I don't know if they would have, I don't think they would have brought Mace back alive, but when we first did the movie, we were signed to do the first one, and we had an option to do 2 movies. So we were, if they wanted to, they could have picked up an option. We were signed to do a trilogy. So
now, the next one comes out, right? And it's got this warning at the start of it. So there's the battle for there's a Caravan for Courage. Then the sequel is the Ewoks Battle for Endor, and at the start of it, there's this warning. Tonight's continuing fantasy adventure of Sindel and the Ewoks, which you've totally been bumped out of the name there, which is very upsetting, contains some scenes of suspense and jeopardy which may be too intense for very young viewers. Parents are encouraged to watch with their children.
Yeah, it was. The Ewok movie was like the first movie that had a parental advisory on it. It was like the second one, I mean, yeah.
But the opening scenes...
Yeah, we all get killed in the movie.
...are brutal. Your mum is dying or dead.
Yeah.
The wristband is, like, in a bad way. And then you drag her very bravely into a hut, and then the hut explodes.
Yeah.
What happened? How did they break this to you? Like, you were the opening credit of a caravan of courage.
Well, Amanda Lucas wasn't a teenager. So that's the story I got. She was 4 years old. Her hero was Steele. So they wanted to do a movie about Steele.
This is all about disrespecting that rock, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. Back in the scene, yeah. She probably was mad about that.
So Daddy killed the rock, bad rock boy? Like, what happened?
Killed the bad rock boy.
So she just liked Steele, so it was like...
No, they both are the same age. I think Amanda was 4 as well at the time. So they're the same age. That became her hero. And Jim and Ken Weed had told me, I don't know if they were just telling me that to make me feel better, but they said when they first came in to start writing and doing, they had a really great story for the whole family. Mm-hmm. But George said, no, go watch the movie Heidi. I want to make it where Steele's an orphan. Remember the movie Heidi? Mm-hmm. And he wants to do it similar to that. So that's how that came about. And I was told by Aubrey Miller's parents, Steele's parents, that Mace was actually dead. So in the first draft of it, all of us were dead. So, but I guess they went and did some rewrites and threw me in it and the father in it, and then just had the mother dead. So
you're like 14 or 15 or by then. Like, how did you deal with that?
I was very upset. I mean, how can you go from working your ass off, in this movie, and I was on the movie set every single day. Even the last day of shooting, I was the only actor there. So, and we did the Magic Pond scene. They did it in a pool at somebody's house. So they had a piece of plexiglass, and I swam underneath it. But that Magic Pond scene was filmed on the last day. But yeah, I was very upset. Very upset. I think I cried myself to sleep, actually. I'm not trying to be a downer, but then when I heard that Mace was alive and he's going to get killed, I was excited that I was going to have some action. So
yeah.
That excited me, being able to shoot that laser gun again.
I was going to say, is it fun?
Yeah, so I was all about the action and trying to kill as many of those marauders, they call them marauders, as possible. So after that, and I totally understand, as an adult, I totally understand that's just the direction he wanted to go. And he could do whatever he wants. It's his saga, his franchise, so...
Yeah, I think I'm taking it worse for you than you are. But it is quite...
Well, the critics weren't nice to him when the second Ewok... The first Ewok movie had good reviews. The second Ewok movie had good mixed reviews, had some good reviews too, but had a lot of bad reviews and said, what is he doing? He's killing his audience. He's having this little girl do stuff that's like impossible. You should have had the boy doing all this stuff, But that's the way it is, so...
It is quite...
And I was very proud of, I want to say this, of Aubrey Miller. She did a great job in that second movie. So...
Very nice.
Yeah.
But it is quite a shocking turn of events. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like watching Home Alone 2 and Kevin gets killed.
Gets killed in the second one.
Yeah, it was like... I sort of vaguely remembered it, and then when I watched it again, like this week, I was like, oh, that is... Like, that's... I needed that warning for me now.
Yeah.
We've got the mic there. If anyone's got like a question that you want to know, something extra.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
If we're going back to the Michael Jackson of everything, right? So Michael Jackson's on set. The set is Endor, specifically the forest moon of Endor. If he did his signature dance, would it be known as the forest moonwalk of Endor?
There you go.
Is that a question?
Oh, come on. You were all thinking it.
Can someone ask a question of why this guy's got a microphone?
You'd have to ask that guy.
Okay.
There you go.
You got a question? Or you're just going to the bar? What about merchandise? I was like they had the Ewoks cartoon and the Droids cartoon around that same time, and they had figures and stuff.
After, yeah.
Was there any, like, as far as I know, there was nothing. But I would, like, do you know what I mean? If they brought out figures now, I'd be so up for it. Was there any talk of like figures and merchandise for that stuff back then?
I was told by someone that they had some molds that Kerner wanted to do some stuff, and then Lucas just didn't want to do them. So at that time.
Really?
So
One day. And how?
Maybe, you never know. They have those competitions where they say, who do you want us to make? And I think they've made a few of the Ewoks already. So like Chukatrak or, the Gorax or something like that. So.
Yeah, definitely the Ewoks. I don't think they've made a Gorax. But
that was you're right. It was that was somebody that made a homemade one that I saw.
Gotcha. Because I was sort of Googling to see because sometimes they have like people have found prototypes and stuff and they put them online. And I was Googling for merch for it, and someone at Esty had made the horse with the little carriage that you refused to get in. Yeah. That you were
they called it a Polga hut or something like that. Or?
Yeah. And they'd made that with a little like Sindel figure, and it was $50. And I was like, might have to hit the buzzer on that one. Have you got a question? Yeah.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how are you?
Doing well. So you guys brought up the Gorax just a second ago. What was it like kind of filming those scenes? Because I'm guessing the Gorax, they had, he was put in afterwards when you guys are not on set at all. So what was it like filming those scenes, having to pretend that there's this, 12-foot tall giant monstrosity trying to eat you?
Yeah, you're right. They did. They put all those scenes in later, so he wasn't actually there. I did go and see them film some of those scenes, so I could see what the Gorax looked like when they were doing it on a different stage, which was nice. And the person during one of the takes, the person who was doing the Gorax also could do that monster sound with his voice. It was like incredible. And during one of the takes, he did that sound. So, they wanted to do it to scare Sindel and all of us, and that was pretty cool. The person who, a lot of people don't know this because it wasn't credited, but John Berg is the person who was in the suit, the Gorax suit. So if everybody wants to know, when you see John, it's John Berg, and he worked at ILM, I believe, as well.
Yeah.
Star Wars.
That name is familiar.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, that was it.
Awesome. Thanks. Like, does it sort of like bother you how this has sort of been like the films have kind of been swept under the rug and sort of a bit unavailable and unreferenced?
I don't know. They just seem to have a love-hate relationship with these films, just like the fans sort of do. You got a lot of fans that love the Ewoks and some of them that hate them. Mm-hmm. So, like you referenced in the beginning. So, and now with what had happened in the past, with the Star Wars timeline being so all over the place, what Disney's doing is trying to clean it all up. And that's okay. I don't have a problem with what they're doing and cleaning it up and sweeping it away and calling it, if they call it Legends material, that's fine. But in my book, we're still part of Star Wars, regardless.
Oh, dude.
So if you want to call it Star Wars Legends, that's fine. But we're still there. We were there in the beginning, and the Ewok movies, especially Caravan of Courage, that movie has a lot of heart. And it has still some of that magic that they had when they were doing the first three movies, the original trilogy.
And the first 5 minutes of the second one's pretty good as well.
It's good.
Am I right?
Yes, it is.
As being a kid, it wasn't that was Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that was people say not my Star Wars. Like, that was definitely part of my experience was watching that film. Like, I kind of hope that, they've got this Disney Plus streaming service starting that's going to have all the Disney, back catalog and all this Star Wars thing. I really hope they put it on there.
Well,
and
I think that would be a great idea.
Like, a new generation can sort of enjoy it because I sort of watched it last night thinking it was going to tarnish my memory of it, but I was like, no, this is a charming kids adventure movie.
It's a great kids movie. It really is. And Disney's is perfect for it. That streaming service, I think, would be great. I know that in the late 90s, the Disney Channel was airing the movies every year during the holiday season. They did that for 4 or 5 years in a row. They aired it every year. And so it would be great if they brought it back, and they definitely need the material. So Disney, if you're watching, go ahead and put it on your streaming service.
Please do that. Yeah. Now, what are you up to these days?
There are lots of fans.
I know you've got a few albums out, and it's sort of electronic sort of sci-fi themed music.
Yeah.
In a way.
My passion is music now. I compose. I'm a composer. And my music is like you said, it's electronic. Most of it's instrumental, like Tangerine Dream or Vangelis or Jean-Michel Jarre. So if you're a big fan of them, you'll like my music because those guys are my mentors, for sure. In fact, one of the songs I wrote was a tribute to one of the Tangerine Dream members. And that song's pretty interesting because it starts off on the piano, then it goes to some like mini Moog sounds in the 70s, and then it goes to some FM sounds, and it goes all the way up to now. And at one point, I'm using an app on an iPhone an iPad to create the sound. So it's like really a history. If you listen to that song, you'll start from analog to electronic, back to analog. So that song is called For Edgar. And it's on my Brand New Day album. Yeah, I have 3 albums out so far that I've done, and my first album did the best. It went to number 38 in the UK on the electronic charts, and I think it was in the top 200 here. So it did pretty well. Nice. I have a song on there that's a tribute song to Star Wars. It's called Return to Endor is the name of the song. So you have to check that out.
And the music was on, I got to hear a bit because it was the soundtrack to the YouTube thing.
I did.
Yeah, and it sort of fit with it really well.
Yeah, I did. I used and that's what I'd like to do. Since music is my passion now, I would like to score movies, here in the future. So that, it would definitely work. I go hand in hand. It would definitely work for me to score movies for sure.
You could score that unfilmed third Ewok film. That's what they need on that Disney Plus. Some more
But the latest song I wrote a Star Wars themed song. It's called "Dare to Dream in a Galaxy Far, Far Away," and it actually has. I'm in the song. I'm actually rapping, and it has a singer singing the main chorus part. So
okay, is that online now?
It's available on YouTube. It's available on Apple Music, Spotify, everywhere you could get it and stream it. Again, it's called "Dare to Dream in a Galaxy Far, Far Away." It's a dance track. It's an EDM track, and we're getting ready to do a music video here real soon. So who knows? I might get the Mace suit out again. So
nice. Well, we'll put a link for everyone watching and listening in the show notes, and we'll link to.
And also, I'm looking for cosplayers for the music video. So if you know a lot of people that do cosplay, hit me up. Because in the song I talk about Chewbacca, Han, Luke, Padme, Leia, and Rey. So I need all those players.
Nice.
To come in.
Sweet. Well, I'm sure if you want to, I can link you up with. I know a guy that dresses up and does karate, so he might be the guy for you. Now, thanks so much for coming down and chatting. As I say, like it's a very apt 200th guest is to have you, Eric. And it's been very exciting and brought up a lot of like great memories for you, for me. Sorry,
and a lot of bad memories for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, come on, good memories. Yeah. Good memories.
No, it was a great time.
What do you sort of keep up on Star Wars? Do you go see all the new films and stuff?
Are you kidding me? Of course.
Okay.
Everybody loves Star Wars. I was a fan then. I'm a fan now, and I think what they're doing. I know there's a big division with the fandom. Mm-hmm. I don't really get it. To me, they're great movies. I mean, I could see, the last one. I could see. There's things in it that I don't like, without getting into it in any detail, that I would have done differently. But there's nothing out there that's like Star Wars, right? No one's making something that's great still. So you may not be living your childhood and how great, Empire Strikes Back was my favorite movie. It may not be Empire Strikes Back, but it's still awesome work. They're working very hard. I think J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy, they're doing a great job. I think he's going to bring it back. I think he's going to take it back home this next time. I have big faith in him.
Yeah. It's going to be really exciting to see, and like obviously I'm a big fan, but I think that if he does his job right, he'll loop in the themes of like The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens to like make people enjoy those films more through how he concludes the story.
He's a great storyteller, so I have full confidence in him. Yeah.
Now, before we go, what would be like your fondest memory, like on set from like working with the Ewok Adventures?
Fondest memory. That's a good question. Probably when George Lucas came up to me and said he saw the dailies, and he was very happy with the work I did, and he referenced that scene, by the way, that I said is my favorite scene. So, and he said nice. He said it was very good, and he really liked, and I'm doing a great job. And also when Ron Howard knew who I was, it's like, hello, you know who I am? You're calling me Eric, you know? And even Linda Ronstadt, at one point, she was even at the rap party, and she's saying my name too. It's like, these people all know who I am. So
that's awesome. You know, I'm picturing that they had a spa at the rap party.
You're funny.
Don't encourage him.
Please thank our guest, Eric Walker, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. And I have goodies for everybody. I brought some CDs and some pictures as well. So
nice. I'm definitely up for a photo. I can tell you that much. Now, how can the good people of the internet like follow you on social media and all that sort of good stuff?
Quickest way is just to go to my official website, which is ericwalkermusic.com, and there you could also find all my social media as well. Okay. So that's just the quickest way to say it.
Sweet. Well, all that will be linked in the show notes of the episode. Thank you to the Scum and Villainy Cantina, JC and all the gang for having us. Thank the producer, Rashad, for all his hard work.
Hello, man.
We've got Chris from the Star Wars Underworld on second camera. Geek Girl Diva, our talent booker.
Yay.
For this episode, anyway. We appreciate that.
It really takes a Ewok village to make this show.
Yeah.
But thank you to everyone here live and listening around the world that supported the show for 200 episodes. It is one of my joys of my life to make the show. So I thank your continued support. And that's about it. May that force be with you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Cheers, man.
Good job, man.
Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss a Steele Wars video. And if you listen to audio podcasts, make sure you check out the award-winning Steele Wars podcast available at steelewars.com, iTunes, and wherever good or bad podcasts are downloaded.